Hey, what's up, guys? It's Tim with the Juice. I am really excited to bring this week's On Training for you. If you're unfamiliar with what On Training is, it's our weekly kind of best of articles that all your juice coaches are reading, and we are constantly trying to push the envelope forward for you, both on the training you receive, whether it's through youth empowerment systems, through our facility program design, individual remote coaching, or any type of way you interact with us in a seminar, in person, etc. We're trying to constantly make sure what we're doing isn't the stuff that didn't get people there years ago. What's the point of that? Makes no sense. So if you scroll down, if you go to our site, you'll see obviously this photo of me, and I'm holding this ball really good. I don't know what that is, but I'm holding it pretty solid there. You'll see we have a series of 5 different articles, a little synopsis of what our takeaway, what kind of the juice coach's favorite part of it was, and what the article is. There's ones here on, the relationship between vitamin D, sunlight, and your musculoskeletal development. There's ones here on swimming, on how to incorporate running into your training programs, mental barriers to championship performances, and how to structure that for you. I want to dig into one that really spoke to me really loudly, working with a ton of talented junior athletes and younger athletes, cadets, etc., that have aspirations to be Olympians, is one of the favorite parts of the work I get to do. But it's also something that means I have to take it really seriously and look critically at why do some athletes make it, why do some don't? And long story short, it comes down to that. So this article was actually based on a British study about super talented juniors, and it was called Growing Pains from Junior to Senior Development. So if you've ever worked with junior athletes, are a junior athlete, younger than that, parent of a kid, hopefully you'll understand why I like this article so much. I want to break it down a little bit. The general premise that I got was, why do more than half in this study of the super talented teenage athletes fail to improve in their sport when they get to their 20s? Right, and that's the premise. And the specific part here, again, you can go to the link here on our website. I'll stop sharing here. You get to see me direct. The general premise of this study was they did a British study on track and field, right, which is a great sport to study. I really like track and field and weightlifting because those sports have generally less interference. 100 meters is 100 meters every time. Yeah, there's wind aided. 100 kilos is 100 kilos every time. Yeah, you might be lifting at night, etc., but more or less they're closer to being in a bubble than other sports are, where, say, fighting, hey, you didn't fight well. Yeah, my opponent was totally different. It's a different setup. So what they found was 63% of the athletes under 20 years old that had competed for the country, had represented Great Britain at the track and field junior world championships over a period of 15 years. Here's what they found. 63% of these really talented juniors did not achieve a personal best as a senior. That's almost 2/3 did not achieve a personal best. And 2/3 of them, the ones that did represent the country, not just I'm really motivated, my Instagram bio says I'm on the national team. No, they're actually on the junior national team, that they did not ever represent their country at a senior level, let alone produce senior international medals, which is obviously a different thing than just getting to wear the kit. Getting to represent it on the podium is what we want, right, on a higher level. So this means on the top end, these kids did not improve relatively. So again, it's not like they made the team, but their times were worse. They didn't make the team, so that's relative to your competitors. They also didn't improve absolutely. Their scores did not improve from when they were teenagers. This shouldn't happen, right? If you know about physiology, you should be getting better for most things. Granted, there's a lot of different variables that go into this, but for most things, either physiologically or a combination of physiology and psychology, meaning you learn how to play the sport better, right? You know how to navigate through the course, or if you're a pole vaulter, you may not be quite as athletic, but maybe you do your approach better to get the pole in the bucket to get over the hurdle, right? I'm sure those are the technical terms there. They didn't have the combination of those to improve. So my first big takeaway from this was what got you here rather, won't get you there. So the things that you have done to become a talented junior athlete, or if you're a coach that has talented junior athletes, first, that's awesome. Congrats. That's really hard to do. But that same thing that happens isn't what gets people to the next level, right? And one of the takeaways I have on this, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is because when we start winning early, that's good. We always want to win rather than lose. But sometimes we get so attached to those processes that we do, we think, oh, I ate this candy bar before juniors and I won. And so now I have to eat it every time I fight. And you go, okay, well, maybe you won because you were just the best. You were just a talented athlete, and that's why you're really good. You won because your training was good and your coach was awesome and you prepared well. I doubt it was actually whatever weird OCD belief we kind of have to help create that mindset. Is probably from the hard work and the work your family, coaches, teammates have put in. I'll bet it's that. Probably not the candy bar. Probably wasn't the external object. Wasn't because you rolled your right pant leg up 2 times, right? But sometimes we hold on to that. And so that's obviously a microcosm of the real belief going, I have to keep doing this thing. This is what I did to win when I was 13. This is what I did to win when I was 16. Good. Look at what the top people are doing first, and they're constantly changing their game, learning new things, learning new approaches, again, both physiologically and psychologically, and the combination of those to improve. So I would say that's probably first thing that comes to my mind is what got you here won't get you there. Okay. The second thing I think is in approach. There's going to be 3 parts. Again, the first one, what got you here won't get you there. The second one is in the approach of how we're doing the training with people. And this is stuff I just see regularly. People come to me, and luckily I get to talk to a lot of different people about their training. I always say I'm kind of like cool Uncle Tim. I'm not the one that has to sit in the chair for most people, but people come to me and I get to kind of help people navigate through the muck, as it were. The first one, I'll say, again, going with that approach of what got you here won't get you there. The way that the kids are being trained as one size fits all generally isn't a great developmental strategy, right? A lot of research out on this, but we see it at seminars all the time. We see it at camps. I see it in videos, etc. The stuff that 8-year-olds are doing are the same things that our senior elite are doing. And yes, it can be very aspirational and inspirational for them to do that. But developmentally, which is the basis of that, right, of what they need to move forward and to have this physiological ability to adapt to new training environments, to new skill sets, etc. Because most sport looks differently every decade, right? Look at fitness competitions, look way different than they did a decade ago. Look at fighting, whether it's taekwondo, UFC, etc., looks way different than it did a year ago. So if we get too hyper-focused on this narrow skill set from a young age, we really hold on to those as, one, it limits our ability to branch out as we get older, depending on where the sport goes. And then 2, we kind of get stuck in our ways of this is how it is. This is just what it is. And so no one adjusts. And when no one adjusts right, on your group, someone's going to adjust somewhere else, and they're going to have a big, big advantage. Again, whether that's both physiologically from your actual abilities you can do, or psychologically from your ability to change what you do physiologically. Because that comes from a psychological approach, in my opinion, right? Why won't someone learn a new drill? Well, if they can physically do it, it's probably their mental game, right? There's some belief they have that's limiting them from changing. Okay, so that'd probably be the first one I look at. The second one, from the physiological side, I see this a lot. Conditioning where it's an untrained kid, and they're young. I'm talking like kid, like 10, 12, and they're doing like, something a local trainer at the gym is having them do, and they're a talented kid. And so they're doing kettlebell deadlifts, even though this kid doesn't know how to deadlift, even though this kid can't keep a neutral spine, let alone do these movements loaded, let alone do them for repetitions under fatigue, etc. They don't have the motor control. They don't have the movement patterns. They don't have the ability to express power a single time, let alone in repeated environments under fatigue while they're drained. So now, again, we're at best limiting the things we could do to set up success for longer times. And 2, if let's say it does work in the short term, we go, hey, this did work now, that limits their future growth because the base they have to move from isn't as sound, right? There's levels of development for all this stuff, and we want to try and own on those for our younger athletes. So when they do, again, let's say for argument's sake, Tabata kettlebell deadlifts is an appropriate exercise relative to your sport. That's a different argument, right? I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Let's just say that is. There would be a time when we want to maximize output for that. And that would be because motor control is good. That would be because movement patterns are good. That would be because we're trying to squeeze out all the juice that you need for that competition rather than continuing to build the biggest base possible. What we want is to build the biggest base possible, not to go to intensity early, right? If you can, it'll work, right? Try and do that with say a test with a 10-year-old. You can go really narrow and learn everything for this one test and this one deal. You might learn it, but you lose out on a lot of other knowledge that we know later in life. A broad knowledge base is generally going to be superior than knowing. I know all about one book. Hey Tim, you want to talk about Moby Dick? And I'm like, nope. You want to talk about Old Man of the Sea? Because I read that. Right? I'd rather be able to have a broad base than wherever that goes for their future learning they can pull from. That's kind of a silly analogy, but you get the idea. Final part I'm going to say is in expectations. So we have approach here and what having people who got you here won't get you there, and why these talented athletes stall out, right? Both relatively, they're not making the senior team like they should, and when they do make the senior team, they aren't actually improving their absolute times, aren't getting better, and they're not getting medals, right? And we see this in a lot of different sports, so you can get the takeaways from it. I will say expectations, when the younger athletes, when they are being pushed to intensity too soon, and I don't mean intensity as far as it's a hard workout, etc. I mean intensity of there's multiple peaking competitions in a year that they have to get up for, right? So what that happens is they don't have as much time to train, and they have less time in what we call the preparation phase, right? Or preparatory phase. We want to have most time for them when they're younger, building and training. And cool, if the one big competition a year comes up, yeah, you can peak them up for that. That's fine. They can do it. It has to do with how their central nervous system is developing, the levels of stress they can handle, and the ability for them to be in the right stage of training at that time. Right? So younger, we want lots of training time. Why? Because they need to get good motor patterns. They need to get good movement control. They need to get good training habits. And not just, I train when I compete and then I don't and I eat like crap. I'll get it back in when the next competition comes up. It's in 2 weeks and I'm burnt out. Bad strategy, right? We want to have a good strategy where they learn to really love the process and loving training and loving being in the gym is a good experience for them. And they're well-rounded and they're learning lots of new skills because the game is going to change. They need to adapt themselves, their approach, etc. So we have too many of these, which we see our world-class athletes have, and that's okay because they've hopefully put in the reps. The ones that are world-class winning medals have put in the reps where they're not going to make a lot of improvement just training anymore. They need to train, yeah, but they are getting ready to compete and getting ready to win. That's their training revolves around winning. But now we're at the end of their career, right? And an athlete into their career last 4 years, you're not doing a whole bunch of new stuff. Some, yeah. But you're not like, all right, let's learn 10 new kicks. That's like a beginner. But guess what beginners should be doing? Mastering the basics and that stuff down. So at the world international level, we want peak, bring it down, train, peak, because that's their goal. If someone's goal is 2020, they're going to retire. I'm not building a plan for them to 2024, right? 2020, we're squeezing it out. You have a couple bad habits. Hey, we're maximizing it. We're going to mask it up and we're going to get out there and try and get a medal. But if your goal is 2028, we're not going to mask stuff up so you can get third place at states instead of fourth, right? We're going, hey, let's rebuild this thing so we can get it set up on the right rails for 2028. And that's kind of how it's done. So that's my takeaway from these. I would love to hear your takeaway from this article or any of these articles we put there for you, and leave it up in the comments. And that is On Training for this week. And look forward to next week. We've got some new stuff coming out. Thanks.